A reading from the first book of Samuel. In those days, Hannah conceived, and at the end of her term bore a son, whom she called Samuel, since she had asked the Lord for him. The next time her husband, Elkanah, was going up with the rest of his household to offer the customary sacrifice to the Lord and to fulfill his vows, Hannah did not go, explaining to her husband, "Once the child is weaned, I will take him to appear before the Lord, and to remain there forever. I will offer him as a perpetual Nazirite." Once Samuel was weaned, Hannah brought him up with her, along with a 3-year-old bull, and an ephah of flour, and a skin of wine, and presented him at the temple of the Lord in Sahoah. After the boy's father had sacrificed the young bull, Hannah, his mother, approached Eli and said, "Pardon my Lord. As you live, my Lord, I am the woman who stood near you here, praying to the Lord. I prayed for this child, and the Lord granted my request. Now I, in turn, give him to the Lord. As long as he lives, he shall be dedicated to the Lord." Hannah left Samuel there. Verbum Domini.
Everyone who fears the Lord, who walks in his ways. By the labor of your fruit, of your handiwork, blessed shall you be and favored. Blessed are those who fear the Lord and walk in his ways. Your wife shall be like a fruitful vine in the recesses of your home. Your children like olive plants around your table. Blessed are those who fear the Lord and walk in his ways. Behold, thus is the man blessed who fears the Lord. The Lord bless you from Zion all the days of your life. Blessed are those who fear the Lord and walk in his ways.
A reading from the first letter of St. John. Beloved, See what love the Father has bestowed on us, that we may be called the children of God, and so we are. The reason the world does not know us is that it did not know him. Beloved, we are God's children now. What we shall be has not yet been revealed. We do know that when it is revealed, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. Beloved, if our hearts do not condemn us, we have confidence in God and receive from him whatever we may ask, because we keep his commandments and do what pleases him. And this commandment is this: we should believe in the name of his Son, Jesus Christ, and love one another, just as he commanded us to do. Those who keep his commandments remain in him, and he in them. And the way we know this is that he remains in us, is from the Spirit he gave us.
Verbum Domini.
Let the peace of Christ control your hearts. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly. Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia.
Dominus vobiscum.
Et cum spiritu tuo.
Lectio Sancti Evangelii secundum Lucam.
Gloria tibi, Domine.
Each year Jesus' parents went to Jerusalem for the feast of Passover, and when he was 12 years old, they went up according to festival custom. After they had completed its days, as they were returning, the boy Jesus remained behind in Jerusalem, but his parents did not know it. Thinking that he was in the caravan, they journeyed for a day, and looking for him among their relatives and acquaintances, but not finding him, they returned to Jerusalem to look for him. After 3 days they found him in the temple, sitting in the midst of the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. And all who heard him were astounded at his understanding and his answers. When his parents saw him, they were astonished. And his mother said to him, "Son, why have you done this to us? Your father and I have been looking for you with great anxiety." And he said to them, "Why were you looking for me? Did you not know that I must be in my Father's house?" But they did not understand what he said to them. He went down with them and came to Nazareth and was obedient to them. And his mother kept all these things in her heart. And Jesus advanced in wisdom and age and favor before God and man. Verbum Domini.
Los tibi Christe.
Today, the first Sunday after Christmas, we celebrate the Feast of the Holy Family, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. And Pope Benedict, in one of his Angelus addresses on the Holy Family, he said that if we have to remember the reason for this feast is that when the angels appear to the shepherds of Bethlehem, as recounted in Luke's Gospel, they say, "Let us go see this thing that the Lord has made known to us." And when they went with haste, they found Mary and Joseph and the baby lying in a manger. That the first witnesses, the Pope writes, of Christ's birth find not only the infant Jesus, but a family, mother, father, and newborn son. That God chooses to reveal himself by being born into a human family. So we could say that the human family, consecrated by the presence of Jesus, reveals God. And this, of course, makes sense because the Trinity is a communion of life and love, three persons, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and these eternal processions pouring themselves out one to another. It's a communion of love and this fullness of life, right, that God is life. So the family is the first place and ordinary means of God's encounter with humanity, right? That is the sign par excellence of the Father, of our Creator, right, is the family. That's the sign the shepherds are told about. They go and see. The family is founded, the human family is founded on the indissoluble union between a man and a woman in which human life is welcomed. And of course, the Holy Family is the model for all families, that the couple is supposed to have a faithful and committed love. And this, of course, participates in, is an image of God's love for us. It's faithful, it's committed to the point of sacrifice that we see on the cross, that Jesus laid himself out for us, so to speak. He laid himself down for our salvation, sacrificed himself, lays down his life for us. And that's what we see in indissoluble, committed marital love. And also open to life, right? The human family is called to have this openness to life. And every couple knows that when they have children, it's something beyond them. It's beyond their own powers of reproduction, that children are a miracle, that God gives life, that he creates the human soul. The couple procreates and God creates this human soul. And every child is a witness to this divine intervention of God, that God is at work here and that it's his gift. So the family, we could say, and the Church has said in Vatican II and repeated by the popes, is that it's both human and divine. It's truly a human love where the couple becomes one flesh. They form this one flesh union. And it's divine, right? Because that marital love is caught up, participates in divine love. And as Augustine said, where there is love, there is God, right? We see God there. And of course, with the gift of children, we see God's work and his presence in the family in a special way. The family is consecrated by God because the Word consecrates it with his presence. As we celebrate today, the Word became flesh in a human family. And we say that marriage is a sacrament, one of the sacraments of the Church, and makes this a beautiful path to holiness, right? It's consecrated, the marriage and family, living out that reality is consecrated to God so that all the ordinary, common acts of family life is a path to holiness. The sacrament makes the spouses holy when they live it. And it doesn't have to be in an extraordinary way. Just the routine and day-to-day life of the family is a great path to holiness because Jesus has consecrated it. He has promised to be present there in the sacrament in a special way. So it's a beautiful reality and a true path to holiness. And the family reveals the power of the kingdom. Vatican II said that in a beautiful way, that we see the power of the gospel in the family. When we see a couple, a husband and wife, united in this sacrificial and committed love, we see the strength and the power of the gospel. And it can be in the most humble of circumstances. It can be in what might seem the most fragile of circumstances, in poverty or whatever difficulties. But when a family has this love, we see the very strength of the gospel. That love is stronger than death. That Jesus conquers evil with love, right? That's how he wins his victory, through love, not through worldly power, but he overcomes evil with love. So when we see that in the family, we see the power of the gospel, and it always never ceases to amaze me, when you see that. In some ways it seems so fragile because of the culture that we live in today, but when you encounter it, you see the strength of the gospel there. I remember when I was in the Holy Land, we went to Cana, the church of Cana, and there's many priests on this group, and one of the priests led all the couples there in a renewal of vows, and he gave their marital vows, and he gave a beautiful homily about the greatness of marriage. And I remember he said that when he's out at a train station or in a mall or something and he sees a family together, he wants to go and kneel before that family. He said because it's so powerful and it's so greatness. He had such a respect for marital life. So the family proclaims the gospel, and I think it is the most eloquent witness to the gospel today. Right? It preaches volumes. It shows people what we crave in our hearts. Right? We want this unity. We want this experience of love. And when people see that in a family, that's preaching the gospel. And that's what people want in their hearts. So we say the family reveals this power of God, it proclaims the gospel, and it makes the very love of the Trinity present here on earth. It brings it down to earth. It makes it concrete, makes it visible here on earth. And of course, it's a sign of hope, that we see all the chaos in the world, the difficulties, the seeming triumph of evil, and then we see a family, the triumph of goodness and love. So it's a great sign of hope, of God's victory, of his triumph in human beings. People bonded to one another in love. That is an image of salvation, right? Vatican II said it so beautifully in Lumen Gentium, its document on the church. It says that we're not saved as individuals without bond or link, right? We're saved as part of Christ's body, as his mystical body. So that's an image of salvation. We see this beautiful fraternity, this beautiful communion, this beautiful unity. And that's a sign of hope, that this unity is possible, and that's what we're destined for in the blessed life of heaven. Pope Benedict said that the family is the living cell not only of society, but also of the church, right? That all of humanity passes through the cell of the family, but also the church, right, is built upon this fundamental cell of the human family. And that the good of the person and society, right, has this intrinsic link to the healthiness of the family. Marriage and family is God's plan for humanity. And today, of course, we remember in our prayers many people who cannot get married due to various circumstances or difficulties or have trouble living out the fullness of this plan. We need to pray for such people, for such families in difficult circumstances. And I think Jesus shows us the way out, right, to so many problems that we have in family life today. In this scene today where he stays in the temple, he stays in the Father's house, right, and Mary and Joseph are looking for him. And Jesus is reminding us that he's come to do the will of the Father, right? He reminds us of the primacy of God's will, that he has his zeal for the Father's house. And that certainly is a call to all of us. It's a call to families, right, to seek God's will in all things, whatever difficulties and challenges they face. That families are called to educate their children, to have the freedom, to give them that freedom, by proper teaching and education, to do God's will, right? When they practice virtue, they grow in this freedom to seek God. They want and hunger for God, right? And that's the role of the family in educating their children, right? To tell them, teach them about God, to lead them to God. So that, of course, always is the solution. What's God's will here? To seek it, to seek his presence in our life. And we are called in all our vocations, priesthood or religious life, married life, to live out God's will, right? His plan for that vocation that he has given us. And that strengthens the family, right? It's not the external trappings, right? It's not necessarily the beautiful home or the great jobs or the great place to live. It's living out God's will in the family that's going to strengthen that family. Now, yes, we need to do all we can to seek, the government has a role to play, the society and culture has a role to play to strengthen and protect the family, but at the heart of it, it's seeking God's will that's going to strengthen that family. And we all know and see on the news and know people in very difficult circumstances in family life. So we pray for them today. We ask God's grace upon them that he may strengthen them to do his will and to be a model for families and to participate and radiate this goodness and love of the Holy Family.